fight.
Hey guys, this is Kevin.
And this is Chris.
And welcome to Let Them Fight.
This is going to be the first in a whole series of our podcast. We're going to go through every single Godzilla movie ever made. Excluding a few random things that we don't know about. But all the ones that we know about, we're going to try and go through from the Showa era to Heisei. I think I'm pronouncing it right. We're going to butcher some Japanese names.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
just
absolutely.
Happen.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We're, really stupid Americans. We're just going to, butcher a bunch of Japanese names.
Basically what it's like. Go all the way up from Godzilla 1954 to Shin Godzilla today. And yes, we're including Matthew Broderick, and we're including obviously the new MonsterVerse run.
Yeah, that's going to be that's going to be along the way. We're obviously really excited for Godzilla King of Monsters. You saw that trailer and you were like, you need to watch this immediately.
God. So I was so basically with the two of us here, Kevin has only seen about 3 or 4 Godzilla movies.
That's correct. I've only seen about 3 or 4 of them. You've seen a lot more.
I've been watching Godzilla movies since I was 6. Mm-hmm. So I've seen a ton of them. Most of the ones from the 90s and early 2000s. So I have seen a lot of the earlier ones now too, but I couldn't tell you which ones, and I couldn't tell you when I saw them. I know I've seen Destroy All Monsters several times, and I've seen Final Wars 5 times now.
You showed me Final Wars at some point. That's one of the ones I've watched.
You know what though? Final Wars is going to be so much better when we get there again now, because you'll know all the monsters, and you will feel my hype now, instead of being is that a giant crab? And it's yes, that is a giant crab.
And that giant crab was in Godzilla movie number 28.
Actually, I think it's in number 6. But
really?
Yeah.
You introduced me to a lot of the Godzilla movies, which is just fascinating, to me, that, because I always loved Jurassic Park. You're not a big fan of Jurassic Park, but, Godzilla was, what you grew up with and what you knew.
Yeah, you were my monsters include T-Rexes and Jaws. And I'm yeah, that's nice. I got a 3-headed dragon and, a giant butterfly. Get on my level.
Exactly. And this kind of, I think, our mutual, friendship of Godzilla, I should say, or, not our friendship in general, but, our, how Godzilla became something we loved was a few years ago when we saw the 2014 Godzilla. And I was sort of in the mood of, want to go see a movie? Let's go see Godzilla. That looks pretty good. And you were yes! Immediately.
So sold. I was so hyped for that. I was really hyped for any Godzilla fans that are listening to this. You probably felt the same. But, big budget American Godzilla that doesn't involve Matthew Broderick asking about a lot of fish. I have nothing against Matthew Broderick. That movie just was not... That's not a Godzilla movie, man.
Up until that point, it might be sad to say, but before the 2014 one, the Warner Bros. One, I think that might have been the only Godzilla movie I'd ever watched.
You know what? You and most of the people that saw that movie, because, the top complaint was there wasn't enough Godzilla, but as we're coming off the heels of the original one here, there's about 20 minutes of Godzilla?
Right.
Hour and a half.
It's great, yeah. But anyway, that was around the time where Chris was no, dude, you gotta watch some of these Godzilla. And you showed me, Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. I know I've seen Godzilla versus Hedorah, which we will get to. That was amazing. Godzilla Final Wars. And you gave me, a basic rundown of Godzilla, and I really got into it. We saw Mothra in the theater. We saw the riff tracks of it, which was really hilarious.
The original one of Mothra.
Right.
Solo movie.
Right. And it's you just got me, and I just got so fascinated in it. And I'd been wanting to watch more. I'd been wanting to watch, a lot more. And finally, recently, I was hey, there is that new one coming out that looks really awesome. That we really, really, wow, we really love the trailer, and it looks really great. Why don't we go through and watch all the Godzilla movies?
And here we are.
That's what we wanted. This podcast is going to be all about things Godzilla, all about things kaiju. It's not just going to be Godzilla. We're going to focus on Godzilla for now, but they'll eventually branch off into probably Mothra and Gamera.
Gamera, Rodan, Aragon, King Caesar. These are names that mean nothing right now, but No, but that'll be interesting when we do Gamera because I've actually only seen like the first two Gamera movies.
Mm.
I didn't get to see the cool Gamera movies where he fights like aliens and stuff, and I don't know, he got really cool eventually, and I never saw the cool movies. I've only seen the terrible first few, and okay, not terrible, but I'm a purist with these monster movies. I'm like, if it doesn't have Godzilla, I don't really care.
Yeah, Godzilla's like OG, right? Like Godzilla's like
Oh yeah, for me.
So a lot of it, like, you're kind of the expert on all this stuff, but what's interesting is how we're going to segue into today's movie. This is being the first podcast. We watched Gojira, the first Godzilla movie that was made in 1954, which I watched a few weeks after seeing the 2014 movie. The original Japanese version is what we're talking about tonight. And you hadn't seen it till tonight, which is insane to me. That's insane.
I'd seen the American version, like at least twice. I maybe 3 times, but I remember distinctly at least 2 times I've seen the Raymond Burr one, and I thought it was okay. So I just went, I don't know if it'll be any better in Japanese. Well, boy, was I wrong, because it's a lot better in Japanese.
Yes, absolutely. We will be watching the Raymond Burr version. We're going in order, and the way it worked out chronologically, which is hilarious to me, is 1954 they made Gojira. 1955 they made Gojira Raids Again. And in 1956 is when the Raymond Burr American Godzilla movie, like, re-edit was released. Which is weird that they had 2 movies by then.
It just brings me back to when we were sitting there watching Godzilla vs. King Kong, and I kept swearing to you that no, this wasn't the second Godzilla movie, and you kept saying to me, no, it says here that's the second one. Just, now you know. Now you know why I was mad about this.
Yeah, I don't know much about Godzilla. Like, I really don't know much about the Godzilla like movies. Like, you are really the expert, which is why I was so surprised that you hadn't seen the original Japanese
quote
version.
unquote expert.
So I guess let's start from the beginning. Like, what are your overall feelings on this movie?
I mean, it has the problem I have watching any movie that's made before like 1970 something, where I'm just like, well, it's old and sometimes it's slow, and it's a personal problem I have. But like, all things considered, the imagery is amazing. It still looks good for a movie that's over 60 years old.
Oh, yeah. The imagery in this movie, like, I was blown away by the destruction scenes. There was a shot in this movie where you see the flames in the background and you see Godzilla's, like, silhouette or something like that, where he's got his mouth open, and I'm like, oh my god, that, like...
Yeah, it's
really, like...
And one thing I liked here that's very different from the American version, because, again, I guess they thought American audiences wouldn't understand this, like, post-World War II, we don't want another nuclear bomb sentiment, like, you know, the Japanese people would be feeling, considering, you know, they had 2 bombs dropped on them.
Yeah.
From what I was just reading a little bit before we started this, apparently the director of this actually, like, saw that destruction firsthand way back
Really?
when. Yeah, so it kind of, like, inspired him with this movie. But yeah, they edited out a lot of, in the American version, they edited out a lot of, like, the, ooh, bad nuclear bombs,
That's amazing, that, like, I can see that now, like, thinking back to the movie we just watched, like, the director having seen firsthand, like, a lot of that destruction.
Yeah,
wow.
Apparently also, like, the opening of this movie, where it's, like, the boat and everything.
Yes.
It's a reference to an incident that, I you know, even though I just read what that incident was, I cannot remember the name of it. But basically, it was this boat. It was a fishing boat. It got too close to some of the nuclear testing we were doing, and they came back with a ton of radiation poisoning. They were just like...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was awful. So that incident was, like, fresh in the minds of the Japanese people when this movie was coming out. So, you know, you were a Japanese person going in the movie theater and you're seeing this movie, you're like, it's like that thing! And now, unfortunately, we don't remember that incident, whatever it was called. I really am blanking on it, but that's okay.
Right, yeah. That's what you mentioned like while we were watching this movie that this is like the only Godzilla movie that's considered art or like they were going for art.
I said to Kevin, I said, this is the art one. This is the one where we're trying to have a message. Because just about everything after this was, let's bring another giant monster and he's just going to fight it. It's going to be awesome.
Which it is.
I mean, this isn't to say they didn't try and sneak messages in. Like, much later on, we get, Mothra, who's, like, the protector of the Earth itself. And, they try and bring, like, the environmental messages again and everything. And it just, to me, it's never worked as well as it does in this first one.
No.
Because this first one is just meant to be terrifying and scary and, like, no post-World War II, we don't want nuclear war.
No, absolutely. This first one was, like... Yeah, they took this seriously. Like, this was meant to be... Honestly, this was meant to be a horror movie in the 50s, like, the more I think about it. The scenes where he's stomping around and just you see, like, the war and the destruction of this. Like, you see, like, kids crying and, like, kids, like, injured in, like, the hospital. And I kept thinking, like, Grave of the Fireflies were, like, there was, like, a scene that reminded me a lot of, like... just how, like, sad, like, this all
Man,
was.
I actually haven't seen Grave of the Fireflies yet. I'm way behind. But yeah, no, the scene that really got me a little bit emotional while watching it was, they're in, I can't remember, but the people were taking shelter, and it was basically a makeshift hospital, and the little girl's mother is dying of the burns she has, and, like, she's just crying for her mom, and they tell her the mom's gonna be okay. I'm like, the mom's dead, y'all. She saw that. Like,
there is a scene in this movie. My jaw dropped. I kind of looked at you. I was like, dude, where Godzilla's like destructions, like is doing destruction, and like you see these like this mom and these like two girls, and they're like. She's just like, we're gonna be with your father soon enough. Don't worry. And I'm like, oh, and their father's dead. And I'm like. Oh my god, that's terrifying.
It makes me think of that scene in Titanic where, like, the ship started to sink, right? And you have the third class passengers who are all the way at the fucking bottom, and, like, one lady just fucking, like, gave up, and she's like, well, I'll just tuck the kids in for bed. And, like, this is an actual scene. I think about it all the time, because she was like, we're not gonna make it on that boat, so fuck it, kids, you're gonna die, but you're not gonna know you're dying, and that's what that felt like to me.
Yeah. So, which one of us wants to do the brief plot synopsis? I feel like I could do it, but you...
You know what? Because you've seen it twice, you should do it.
Yeah, me do it?
Yeah.
Alright, so, plot synopsis of this movie is there is a giant, like, earthquake start happening, and nobody knows why. And it is theorized by paleontologists, right? That... a giant lizard is causing these big earthquakes, and everyone's going, no, that's crazy. But then they realize, of course, there is a big giant lizard monster causing all these earthquakes and causing all this destruction. And, oh, by the way, we, like, created it. There was this lizard that was tiny, regular lizard, and then our nuclear bombs made this lizard grow, like, substantially. Into this fire-breathing dragon monster, and the only way to defeat this monster is by going to the scientist man with an eye patch who has what was it called? An oxygen...
Destroyer.
The oxygen destroyer, thank you. It was an oxygen destroyer machine, which of course all great scientists must have. Get Godzilla in the water, destroy all the oxygen in the water, and suffocate it to death. This... Of course, scientists with an eye patch doesn't want this to happen because he doesn't want people getting his hands on it. So, what are they going to do? And then the ending of this movie is really, I think, is really great. This is a classic movie. I think we're gonna do like full like in-depth analysis of these movies. But then end of the movie, they use the oxygen destroyer. And they kill Godzilla, and the Eye Patch Man decides to commit suicide along with Godzilla, so nobody else can use the Oxygen Destroyer. And it will prevent all of this, even though it totally didn't, because there were 33 more movies with Godzilla. Slash other oxygen. So, good try, Eye Patch scientists, good try, but wasn't totally successful.
I think my favorite thing about Serizawa, that's yes. Eye Patch Doctor. So Eye Patch Doctor, they totally set him up with like the look and everything, like he was gonna be evil scientist.
Yes.
And for some reason he just wasn't, which is kind of funny in the end. It's like, oh, he's not the bad guy.
Yes.
I guess they thought they didn't need two bad guys because they're like, we've already got a giant irradiated lizard. I guess.
Yeah, even back then they kind of understood, which movies don't understand. Some movies don't understand this today, but when you have like a giant fire-breathing lizard monster, that's really the only like villain you need. Like any human villain is like not gonna cut it, like comparatively.
It's kind of like, imagine you were watching like Iron Man. They had like Fing Fang Foom all of a sudden. I think that's the name of the big dragon in Marvel. And then suddenly they're like, but also you have to fight Vulture from Spider-Man, and you're like, oh,
Well, that's not as
that's
like. Yeah.
that's not as cool as a giant dragon. Thanks, guys. You know.
Yeah, that's just not as interesting. Yeah, like so. Did they ever explain, by the way, what Surikawa? That's his name.
Serizawa.
Zirasawa. Thank you, Zirasawa. I know his name. I just cannot pronounce these. I can't pronounce names.
Like we said, we're gonna unfortunately butcher Japanese
I'm gonna
names.
butcher a lot of the Japanese names too. But like Surasawa, did they ever explain why he got the eye patch?
No.
No, he just had one.
No, yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
mean,
You didn't need to like.
He even tried to be cool with it at one point. Like, we were talking about, he had the eye patch, and then he wore sunglasses over that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, what? Why does he have sunglasses over the eye patch? I don't know why he didn't just, I don't know.
That is
like
his
a little
introduction scene.
monocle, I guess.
Yeah, like a monocle. Like when he was in the diving suit, I was going like, is he gonna have like an eye patch over like the helmet of his diving suit going into the water? But yeah, no, this movie, I still find it like very impressive. Like you think of Godzilla now because he fought a three-headed dragon and a big moth and like all this, but this was like they really took this seriously. And at no point during the movie did I think that this was a guy in a rubber suit. Honestly, there were moments in this movie where I went, "Oh, that he's in front of a green screen," or "That's a model," or whatever. But the size and scope, I'm like, okay, this is a big creature. Like, I don't know how they're showing it, like the camera angles or the way it was edited or whatever. I'm like, a big creature, you know?
Yeah, I was just... It's weird how still impressive it looks. I think a lot of it has to do with it, not being in color.
Right.
There's, apparently, I found out this tonight, there is a colorized version that was made in the 70s. Like,
Really?
they did colorize it. But apparently it looks like a really poor colorization. But I almost want to see it just to know, like, how bad does it look that people just... Like, literally the IMDb description says that it's a poor colorization. And I thought, wow, when your IMDb thing tells you it's bad, it's got to be bad. Yeah. I don't know why they decided to colorize it.
I feel like that... No, I feel like that would take away a lot from... Like, what I think works about this movie, I was also thinking the black and white, but, like, the lighting in this movie works really well, like, throughout the whole thing, with just the lighting of it being at night, and you see the destruction, and Godzilla's walking, and it's like... That is, like, wow. Like, that is, the lighting in this is just really, like...
Speaking of that, not to do with lighting necessarily, but the monster and the look and everything, so the roar is also super terrifying. I mean, I've heard it a million times because, I've watched all the other movies.
Right.
But in this one, it's particularly chilling, and I think I've told you before how they did the roar. It's actually cool. They took, like, this old leather glove and, like, dipped in, like, oil or some crap.
Oh, it was oil,
and
too.
They dragged it across a cello, and that's how they made the roar.
Jeez. Yeah, that's a terrifying roar, too.
I just... part of me wonders how the hell they thought, hey, let's make a cool roar. How do we do that? And someone just took an old leather glove and went slap it against this cello. I don't know how they thought that would make anything remotely like a roar. But, yeah, that's how they did it. And they've just kind of kept it... Honestly, it's such a cool roar.
It is a cool roar. I mean, that's like, everybody knows that roar around the world. Like, everyone goes, it's not, oh, that's a dragon, or, oh, that's like that's Godzilla. Like that, like that tone and pitch, I can't do it.
It's like... That's how it goes. You know what? I just realized it kind of sounds like a whale.
It does.
It does kinda sound
Found out while we
quicker
were
and
watching this movie, as we often do, I was online looking up facts about the movie, and I found out that Gojira is actually a combination of two Japanese words that mean gorilla and whale. So they literally named their big giant monster gorilla whale.
Which is looks nothing like a gorilla whale.
It makes sense to me just because, like, oh, he's from the ocean, and King Kong was an inspiration for Godzilla. Like, you make fun of King Kong a lot, but like
I do all the time.
Yeah, but Godzilla would be nowhere without King Kong. Like, if King Kong didn't exist.
I mean, that being said, I do like King Kong. It's not that I don't like King Kong. I'm just saying, this SmackDown they got playing in the whole MonsterVerse, I'll be real. Kong gonna go down. I know you're
Kong's
Team
gonna beat
Kong.
Godzilla. I'm saying it right now. Kong would throw down Godzilla.
we're gonna end up having like a bet. It's gonna be like $20.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, I am on Team Kong. I love the King Kong. King Kong was one of my monsters growing up. You know, like, I love that original King Kong movie, and I like the Peter Jackson, like, 3-hour epic. It's too long, but
it is too long.
But I still really like it.
Yeah, actually, one thing that I will say was better with King Kong than Godzilla is the King Kong video game for Peter Jackson was awesome.
I heard that.
But
that was actually
Godzilla has not had a good video game just ever. Had like 2 different fighting games, and they were both just kind of okay. I mean, this doesn't mean I haven't been hunting down more copies of them so I could play them again, because mine are wrecked. They're old and scratched up, and yeah.
This fits in. I was also thinking with Gojira. This really fits in with 1950s sci-fi films, because what I like about the 50s movies more than any other sci-fi film, like a lot more than any other sci-fi film or any other like decade of films, is the social commentary aspects. With Godzilla, like, we're talking about nuclear war and nuclear bombs and sort of warning people against that. With Day the Earth Stood Still, that was also about nuclear war, that this was going to bring our destruction. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, that was all about the Cold War and the fear of communism. You know, everyone's the same. So, like, you really can dig deep into this decade of films more than any other decade. You can dig deep into, like, where did these villains come from? Why did they tell this sort of plot? And why are they telling this sort of story? And you really see the fears. Whereas, like you were saying, like, as time went on, people went, let's just put 2 monsters together.
Well, you know, you gotta realize, too, that, like, all the American monster movies at this point, even when, like, Godzilla was coming out, we're all basically like, watch this destruction, because that at that point, you know, people just want to see the monster fight things. So I feel like a lot of the reasons that Godzilla franchise turns that way is because that's what was selling, and they obviously want to make money. I was reading that the budget for this movie in today's terms is about $250,000.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, not a whole big budget.
No,
movie,
that's
obviously
like
back then. That's a huge.
That's more money than I got right now. So, but
I mean,
still,
this is true. But yeah, that's what I find so fascinating is, like, they had a very tiny budget and basically used it as effectively as they could.
Yeah, they had no budget for, like, miniatures and, like, the stuff they did in King Kong. Like, they couldn't do that at all. Like,
basically, the actor who was in the Godzilla suit, he said that Rector came up to him and was like, listen, so it would take us 7 years to do the claymation thing they did with King Kong. So we got to do this movie in 3 months. We got to do something else. How you want to be in a giant rubber suit? So they put him in this, like, 500-pound suit that they can barely move in.
That sounds terrible. That sounds just so awful.
You know what's hilarious about that? They still kind of use that, like, same technique for the stupid Batman suit that George Clooney wears in Batman and Robin. It's like, why do you keep using this heavy rubber? We have the technology.
You can't have CGI. CGI looks terrible. It's gotta be real. I don't care if it almost kills your actors. It's gotta be real.
I mean, your actors aren't ready to totally quit by dying of exhaustion every minute. Are you really making a movie? That's what Stanley Kubrick would say.
You're right. Get an actor like Christian Bale. Like, you can beat the crap out of that guy, and he'll, like, do whatever.
I mean, even if he flips out on you, just put it on the internet. Make, headlines.
Can you imagine if the internet existed back then? They were making Godzilla, and the guy in the suit just flipped out, like
he's just on Twitter being like, "You see this shit? You see, like,
God, they're not treating Godzilla fair."
Rubber suits have rights too,
right? As much as we make fun of the rubber suits, though, it really did work in this movie. Yeah. Like, it really does.
I don't think it's going to work in any of the other movies. But, like, in this one, yeah, it's haunting, it's creepy, it's legitimately terrifying. Like, this movie does a really good job making it terrifying, something that kind of gets lost in a lot of the other ones.
Lost at sea. Like Lost at Sea.
Yeah, they're just, like, they don't become scary anymore, but they are cool designs.
Oh, they are.
I think that's one thing I'm actually excited about with the King of the Monsters coming out right now is, holy shit, the monsters might actually be scary again.
Right.
Because, I don't know about you, but the shot in the new trailer where, like, Ghidorah's wings just pop out and it's just the lightning comes down, that is absolutely terrifying.
Look, your cover photo on Facebook right now with the three-headed monster, Ghidorah, versus Godzilla's, like, they're coming towards each other. Oh man, that gets
so
me.
Lit.
It's so cool. And also, I guess we should talk about like the human characters a little bit. I like the Serizawa character. I think he's very fascinating, and it's like a interesting, complex, like moral dilemma where he's like, I know if I use there's like a line where I know if I use this is gonna be like, you know, every country's gonna want to find it and find me or whatever. And I was thinking like. That's still talked about today, like Iron Man. Like, the whole point of the Iron Man movies is, like, you know if I let the American technology, like, American government get a hand on this technology, then everyone's going to be fighting in these in, like, 20 years. And that's just going to cause so much more destruction. And it's one of those, like, they joke about it in Futurama, like, Professor Farnsworth where he's like, I created a doomsday machine just for peace. And you're like, how does that... Enough questions, Fry! Like... it's kind of the same thing here, where this guy, like, he didn't invent it, he discovered a doomsday device. Or doomsday element, essentially.
Yeah. He basically figured out how it's done, like, oh, that's not good. And so he's like, okay, Emiko, my assistant here, I think also... I guess I missed the line where apparently she's going to marry that guy. Like, it's an arranged marriage. I missed that.
I think there was, like, a thing where, like, she was going to marry that guy, but she also, like, kind of like the main character.
Well, yeah, so she was liking the other dude. That was, like, the whole big thing. That's why he has to ask for her father's consent and everything. I didn't know this. This was also cut out of the American version because I guess they were like, ooh, a 1950s American audience isn't going to be too keen on this arranged marriage.
By the way, what's so funny is the scene where the main character is going to, like, ask the father's consent. He just, like, the father comes in. This happens, like, what, right after all the destruction or something?
The first Godzilla attack.
Yeah,
the first major one.
And he just comes in. The father is one of the main scientists, like, the main guy that says, hey, guys, this is a giant lizard, and everyone laughs at him, but then, like, he's right. And he comes in, and he's got this look on his face like, can I marry your daughter? Yeah, sure. Whatever.
Yeah, just like, okay.
We're dead in 10 days, man. And, like, he's just so, like, scared out of it. It's kind of hilarious.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I guess that was a subplot that I totally missed. But... You know, that is what it is. But yeah, so she was going to marry the doctor, and he's like, promise you're not going to tell anyone that I have this, like, doomsday weapon. And then it gets near the end of the movie, and they're like, there's literally a giant lizard. We need to use the doomsday weapon.
Absolutely. They were like, you need to, like, use this in order for, like, us, like, you need to use this device for us to save millions of lives. He's going like, no, this will, like, destroy a lot of lives. And they're like, no. Either you have the chance of destroying a bunch of lives in the future, or you protect everybody in the world now.
By killing the giant lizard.
Exactly.
And he's like, okay.
Okay, yeah. I really love the solution that he had. Like, I find it so fascinating. He's like, yeah, I'm just gonna, like, drown myself down here so no one else will have this technology. And I mean, you would know this maybe, or at least of all the movies you've seen, which I'm gonna say you've seen at least 15 of these.
I've seen the majority.
The majority.
When I was going down the list earlier, it was like only 3 or 4 that I didn't recognize.
Really?
Like,
wow.
yeah.
That's pretty good in my book. Did they ever use the oxygen?
No.
Never.
No, the only, I mean, spoiler alert for a future movie, but when we get to the quote-unquote sequel to this that they made in the 80s called Godzilla 1985, even though it came out in 1984, Raymond Burr's in that one. It's supposed to be a direct sequel to the American version.
Really?
But, like, it was still made by the Japanese group and everything. Basically, the way they kill Godzilla in that one is they drown him in a volcano. So, yeah, it's,
I guess that would work.
yeah, there's a few ways that Godzilla dies throughout the rest of the films. I think he dies like 3 times in total, if I remember. And basically they all involve some force of nature instead of like some science stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Which, to be fair, kind of makes more sense.
That makes more sense to me because Godzilla is a force of nature. Like Godzilla was made like through nature and our help with the atomic bomb, but like
Although I don't know how they're gonna kill him off in the stupid anime trilogy that they're doing right now. God, when we get to those,
I only found out about that like a month or 2 ago, and you were explaining it to me, and I was like, "What?"
God, I hate them. I'm sorry, anyone out there who's a big Godzilla fan who's really enjoying them. I'm trying to enjoy it, but after about like a half hour of them repeating the fact that Mechagodzilla built a city out of himself, I was good. I was like, you know what? I'm solid.
But yeah, I can see this being like huge deal. Like this movie we watched, like this was a huge deal in Japan. And it's insane to me how it was not seen like here, or I'm gonna go on a limb and say it probably wasn't seen like very much anywhere else for like a really long time.
Oh yeah, do you want to know when the Japanese version was released here in the U.S.?
When was it finally released?
I want you to take a guess first.
Oh, I'm gonna say 90s.
Okay. What if I told you were wrong?
Was it later or earlier?
2004.
Wow. That's insane, because to me that means, because this movie, maybe it's because I know like a lot of film critics don't like, look up to monster superhero movie or whatever. Maybe it was just because it was the reason it was the first of 30 whatever films or whatever and counting. But I always saw this as like one of the films you have to see before you die. Like this was like classic cinema, like whatever. But it's insane to me that most of those people I grew up like reading about were talking about the English version probably with Raymond Burr.
Yeah.
Whereas this is the one that has like all the themes and all the destruction and nuclear anti-war message that people really like to read into, like old school film critics.
To put that in perspective too, that means they didn't release the theatrical, because they released it in theaters. They didn't release the Japanese cut till 2004. That's 2 years before Final Wars, which would have been the final Godzilla movie made in Japan until 2016's Shin Godzilla.
Wow.
So only 2 years before what was essentially the final Godzilla movie did they actually release the Japanese cut here in America.
That is insane. Like, that is absolutely insane. I'm looking up right now. I'm trying to find like any film critics on the 1950s, the original Gojira, and whether or not like it was revered by anybody before 2004. Yeah, 2004 release. Yeah, I guess that's when people really liked it. Owen Gilberman, he does reviews for Entertainment Weekly. I like him a lot. He gave it an A minus. Yeah, I guess that's when people really responded to it. Like was 2004. At least people here, critics that I know. Which means before then, people were praising the American version.
I mean, listen, nothing against Raymond Burr.
No.
Because I like Raymond Burr. He was in, oh God, he's one of the famous TV detectives. Oh, well, I think it's Matlock. I'm probably wrong. Probably right. Who knows?
Matlock, maybe. Raymond Burr, I just know from Godzilla.
Really?
For me, yeah.
He was famous for basically TV.
I also know he was Steve Martin before the real Steve Martin.
But yeah, his narration and the way that like it's told in flashback in the American version, it's not as cool as just seeing the movie play out. Like, I don't know, if it's sort of like somebody like us telling you about something, like, yo man, you should have been there, there was this cool thing. That's kind of what like the Raven Burr's version feels like. Again, not his fault, it's the way they wrote it, but
I'm reading like about this on you're gonna like this.
Yeah.
So apparently it received mixed to negative reviews in Japan when it came out. And the director said at the times they wrote things like, "This movie is absurd because just such giant monsters do not exist." Like, that's insane. Like, what? That is legit.
What's this? Movies having creativity.
Imagination? You mean, like, it's not our reality? What? Like,
whoa. Which is, that's kind of hilarious, because, like, okay, not to get, like, deep art film student here, but, like, Georges Méliès, the director in, like, French cinema, was making movies like, we're gonna shoot a missile at the moon, and the moon has a face, and, like, critics were like, this is
brilliant.
such deep,
Absolutely brilliant
art right here, guys.
But apparently, like, it took them a while. It took a while for this movie to get the respect that people give to it now.
Yeah.
I think. Like, yeah, it is fascinating to me that, like, it just took so long for, for the original version to be shown anywhere else and for it to be, like, gained respect. Maybe it was because there were so many sequels. Maybe it was because they kept making them.
Yeah.
Maybe there was something that had to do with that original, Yeah,
I think that's what it was. It's kind of crazy, and truth be told, there are only 2 Godzilla movies ever that I saw in the movie theaters. One was, so, like, 1999 was the year every movie had, like, the subtitle 2000 because we all thought we were gonna die for some reason. So, and Godzilla was no exception, because Godzilla 2000 came out in theaters here in America, and it was super hype because the movie right before it was Godzilla vs. Destroyer, and again, spoiler alert, Godzilla dies at the end of that, so people were like, oh my god, it's new Godzilla, and that started off the Millennium Era of movies, which I actually have not seen the majority of the Millennium Era, but I've seen a good chunk of it. But yeah, so that's probably what it was that they were like, okay, we had this successful Godzilla 2000 release in theaters, maybe now we can release the original and see if people will watch it.
Yeah, maybe it was. Honestly.
I cannot think of one before that I remember being advertised as being in theaters.
I mean, I don't think the only one I've seen in theaters is the 2014 one.
Yeah, that's the second one.
Right. But, like, yeah, maybe it was. I think, I don't know, I feel like Godzilla, like, kind of opened the doors for, like, other people. Maybe it was late. Maybe I'm probably talking about the U.S. version right now. I think it opened the doors for, like, people to go see foreign movies and see, like, other types of movies.
I mean, Toho had just had success with Seven Samurai, as we talked about, which is now regarded as one of the best films.
Right. Didn't it come out the same year as this?
It came out like the year before.
Oh, the year before. Okay.
I can't remember, but it was the last Toho major release right before this one.
Right.
So they did this back to back with that. You imagine being like, from the company that brought you Seven Samurai comes a movie about a giant lizard destroying things.
I could see, like, I mean, there are probably people today that would be like, whoa, Seven Samurai was a great movie. Oh, they're making a movie about a giant lizard? Well, I don't care about monsters, but I'm going to be excited because it's from the people that made Seven Samurai.
I can already think of, like, how many film students we know that would legit just be like that. Be like, well, they made Seven Samurai, so this one, it's probably got something.
Even if it was, like, I don't know, Godzilla versus Hedorah.
Oh, my God.
That was the release. But this is, like, a really good movie. Like, this is a very well-made...
legitimately.
I don't really know what else to say about this one in particular. I'm sure we will get into more about, like, the Americanized, like, what, bastardization? Is that what people are calling it now?
I mean, I don't even want to call it that. I just want to call it A for effort because like they tried. At the
They really
look
did
at the
try.
very least, what we can say about the American version, is that it brought it here to America for
Right.
people to get excited about Godzilla movies, and for them to go and make more because it was popular.
Right, absolutely. Like if that version didn't happen, then like we would not get any of the other movies.
No,
like, dubbed or anything
we
like
wouldn't
that.
get the MonsterVerse now.
No, absolutely not.
And I certainly would not have a collection of Godzilla toys in my house. Like,
we would have gotten King Kong versus Godzilla, which that is a movie I grew up with, by the way. I owned that movie on VHS. King Kong, like I love that movie. Like just to see like those two monsters. Like that's when I was like, you know what? This is always I just haven't seen many of these. Like this is always something that interested me, entertained me, and just made me amazed that like people were able to. This was entertainment for like a lot of people. This is what people like found entertaining. So yeah, any other thoughts on the say of the original?
to give some finality to this, I am curious to see going forward, basically how they go from here. Because I actually haven't seen Godzilla Raids Again. I just know it has one of my favorite monsters who's recurring, which is Anguirus. He's a giant armadillo.
Oh, there's another monster in there?
There's another monster.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's
In
interesting.
Godzilla, we get Godzilla Raids Again, which has the first appearance of Anguirus, who is basically this giant armadillo with a spiky back. He's really cool. I really like him. And then after that is King Kong versus Godzilla, and then it goes. Then it's Mothra versus Godzilla.
I also like so is Gojira. This was the first kaiju monster movie, right?
Yeah. This was Japan's.
They
first
didn't make
attempt.
Mothra before. Or
No,
Gamera before?
Mothra and Rodan, and there's a movie about Baragon were made after this.
Okay, and then they eventually all crossed over.
Yeah, eventually they basically. And then there's like I said, there's the Ultraman ripoff TV show with Godzilla and this Ultraman ripoff.
Jeez.
Well, it's funny too because the director of Godzilla went on to do Ultraman for a little while. So like, I don't know why they couldn't just use Ultraman. It seemed weird. I don't know.
But yeah, no, I'm excited to watch all the rest ones. I'm really glad to watch this one again, and the next one will be Godzilla Raids Again, which came out a year later.
Yeah, it was a really rushed sequel.
I don't know about that one, but like by which I mean like I don't know if it's gonna be half as good as this one.
Listen,
but
the sequel to King Kong came out the year after.
that's true, and I do like that movie. That movie obviously is not nearly as good.
No,
as,
and obviously this one isn't going to be the haunting, beautiful masterpiece that Gojira is, but like...
Son of Kong, like, I mean, I could talk about that movie for like another 45 minutes, but like, Son of Kong, like, I really love the Carl Denham, like, oh man, what did I do? You know what I mean?
Oops.
Like that. Maybe there'll be something similar in this one. They're like, oh my god, what, we killed this creature, what do we do? Like,
I mean, if anything, I'm just down for some more monster destruction.
Yeah, we'll get more monster destruction. I hope you guys enjoyed our podcast. My name's Kevin. This is Chris. You can follow me online, thatmovienerd.com, thatmovienerd on YouTube. I probably will upload this podcast to YouTube just to show people we're on Podbean. And yeah, if you like Godzilla movies, we'll be back with Godzilla Raids Again.
Yeah, so tell your friends who aren't Godzilla fans so they can get a quick rundown about Godzilla movies from two people that barely know anything about Godzilla movies.
Absolutely.
Because then they can relate to that. And for those of you that are longtime Godzilla fans, I'm going to seriously try and be as informative and detailed in my everything as possible, but I'll be real with you guys. I just learned the order of, like, the eras today, and I've been hearing it for years on all the Godzilla pages. I was like, yeah, sure, guys, I know what you're talking about.
Did you think the Millennium Era took place in the 70s?
No, see, that was the thing. I had the Millennium Era down because I was like, Dad, that's 2000. That makes sense.
Right.
But then, like, they were like, oh, what about the Showa and the Heisei? And I'm like, what?
This is basically two guys, like, figuring all this out because we were the movies we have seen of Godzilla, we loved. Absolutely loved.
Side note, I can't remember which Godzilla movie it is now, but it just hit me like a brick wall. There's one where the entire movie is told by this little kid who's just been kidnapped, and he's, like, trying...
Kidnapped by Godzilla?
No, not by Godzilla. By some, like, gangsters or whatever, and he's, like, Don't worry, I'm gonna distract you with the story about Godzilla, and that's the movie. That's the whole movie.
I can't wait to get to that.
I can't remember which one it is, but my brain just remembered it all of a sudden. I'm like, oh, yeah. So we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, we're on Podbean. This is Let Them Fight, first episode.
Let them fight. And we'll catch you guys next time with Godzilla Raids again. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.